Okay, this is Brian again, and I do the history all over the state of North Carolina, but also I have several inventions over the years doing truck driving and everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this video on both our invention channel and also on the Tar Heel History, 3 words, Tar Heel History channel. So you can go on there, see us extract the resin actually from the trees and everything. So if you're a survivalist, you actually can see how to make these homemade steels that have become very, very popular. So Tar Heel History, episode 10, shows us cooking the resin out. This is what's got so popular with the survivalist, I think, and it's a homemade steel that you cook your resin in and cook out to turpentine for use in cuts and all kind of things if we were to go down to nothing. And it's made out of a pressure cooking pot you can get at Walmart. I mean, it's just a steam pot is all it is, teapot, with a copper tubing. And I actually welded ours to the pot, then coated it with fireproof caulking, and then down here we placed just a old bucket and caulked around it to hold the water to cool, you know, as it turns into a mist and comes through here and it cools it down, it turns back into a liquid. Okay, so it's a simple, cheap way of putting it on a fire and putting your tree resin out of your pine trees. And you collect this in the summertime when it's hot weather, 80 degrees plus. You don't go get that that's on the tree that's dried out, because that, once it dries out, the turpentine dries out of it in the air. And that's why when they were making turpentine, you needed the liquid resin out of the living tree, because otherwise the turpentine in the air dries out of it and it turns into just what they called scrape, which has half the amount of turpentine left in it. So you can see this right here. And also, since we started doing this all over the state and teaching, I have learned that the older people used to use this in cuts. So now, instead of going to the doctor when I slice my finger open, I just pack some in that cut, hold it together, and that resin will heal it and seal it and take the pain out of it. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just telling you that's what I do now with all my cuts, and it has worked. So if you're in the woods, survivalist, liquid resin out of the tree, but you need the liquid resin that comes out when you cut the tree. Now, the way they did it was with a hack, and this is trees that we have worked and then cut down for displays. And you can see you just come under the bark and cut you another streak. It'll let those pores running from the heart run out, run down here. And in the early days, they cut a hole in the base of it with a boxing axe, and that was what caught the resin for them to dip out. The way we do it now is the way the later years, they use just a metal cup, some tin stuck in the face of the tree, where a nail there where you can hang that cup, and then as you cut the face, it'll run down and run into your cup, and then get you a airtight container to store it in so that it stays in this form, not this is dried out. This is what they call scrape. This is what's hanging on the outside after a couple weeks. It doesn't have any resin in it to make turpentine. Put it in here with water. Episode 10, Tar Heel History, you can see us do it. You load it in the steel with some water. Our steels, I learned, with these Chevrolet shims bolted through it to keep the cap from exploding and blowing off of it. If it gets too hot, that turpentine can explode. So I'm not recommending you do it. I'm just showing you what we do in our shows to cook off the resin into turpentine, into a jar. And we have this little stand I invented and made to push in the ground, set the pot on, put the fire under to heat the steel to cook the turpentine out. This is another one we made to do the same thing. You see the shims to hold the lid on there, and lay a wet towel on top of it to keep any fire from blowing up. This one we put 2 cooling tanks on it and keep them full of ice and water, and that runs out. The other end is turpentine. The last one I did, because we wanted to see if we could do it on a bigger scale, is a pot that I found that actually has latches on the lid, a steam pot. And then we hooked it up here and put a big cooling tank here so it turns it back into a liquid. Okay. Thank you for watching. We're trying to preserve the original history of the state of North Carolina and these inventions, home inventions, together. We're trying to keep it alive. If you would, spread it. And if we ever come to that day when we can't survive and we're out in the woods, this will definitely help you in sealing up watertight things and also curing wounds.